Okay, hi everybody. This is Joe Lababera as part of our Climb to Glory videos where we discuss local New Jersey politics and analysis on current events and a lot of other issues that are going on in our country and our society today. With me are two outstanding individuals who I know personally, Jason Sarnoski and Josh Aikens. Jason Sarnoski is the director of the Warren County Commissioners. And has done incredible work down in Warren County for their economy and for a lot of their local municipalities and a lot of their local boards in their county, which do very strong work for their community. He has a very strong track record of results. Also is with Josh Aikens, who I've worked with for a little over a year. As a very, very minor supporting effort for his great effort, which was Arise New Jersey, taking on the lefts by working with school boards across the state and helping find good school board candidates and coaching and mentoring them to succeed. Both these gentlemen are now running for assembly for Legislative District 24, which is predominantly Sussex County, parts of Warren and Morris County. And today what we're going to discuss is a very interesting issue that's been going on, ESG, environmental, social, and government. This is what we see in a lot of companies and a lot of big investment banks and in a lot of private equity firms in ways that they believe they can redirect funds to accomplish objectives that don't include the bottom line or the profit. We have some issues nationally with ESG. We've had a lot of strong conservative leaders come out against it. And there's been a lot of investigations and a lot of issues with ESG as a platform for the things that it's been done. There's a lot of things that have happened with ESG that have not been for the bottom line, and people are wondering, hey, where did my investment money go? So, I mean, that being said, gents, what's your take on the current state of ESG, and how do you see it at the local level or at the legislative district level applying to basically community level politics?
Yeah, Joe, that's a great question. And thanks for having me and Josh on today. We appreciate the opportunity to speak about this important issue. So ESG is woke investing. It isn't using baseline financial results to evaluate portfolios, to evaluate financial institutions, funds, or securities. So it's using non-hard data, which is subjective, to measure something that's very objective that we need to measure, which is our financial performance of our institutions. And, I'm opposed to that kind of investing because at the end of the day, we're investing in what is a liberal agenda and not one of the values that, quite frankly, I follow. We're talking about things that issues that ESG pushes are issues of climate change, DE&I, and human rights issues that are on the extreme left side of the spectrum that maybe have nothing to do truly with the financial impact of a company or securities investments. And we see companies like, for example, Silicon Valley Bank, which has become the ESG failure kind of template now. Things like Silicon Valley Bank, which have high ESG ratings, but have failed as a financial investment for some of those reasons I just discussed.
Yeah, Josh, what do you think about when these banks do this, when they have these very heavy ESG portfolios, but yet they don't seem to have a lot of money they're making for their actual investors?
Well, essentially what they're doing is they're putting investors in the entire system at risk. No bank functions in a vacuum on its own. So when one bank goes down, the entire system is felt. The impacts are felt throughout, all the other banks, and we're going to see the impacts of what happened to Silicon Valley Bank reverberating to all the other banks. There's going to have to be an adjustment through from the banking community to not continue this type of this governance. I mean, if they do, help us all. I mean, I don't know if you guys both heard in the past 48 hours, the federal government's talking about creating their own crypto currency and trying to get rid of paper currency. And that coupled with ESG is very frightening and should be very frightening to a lot of American citizens because, in my opinion, I don't want to, jump the shark on this one, but in my opinion, this leads the way to a social credit score similar to what you see in China.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what we want. And I don't think that's what this country was set up to have a government being able to rack and stack us and evaluate us and then to make decisions for us that may or may not go against our interests based on what the government thinks. It's not really what America was about. It's interesting how they were able to get this momentum started. I remember in business school when they talked about ESG, and it was really exciting, and I didn't know any better, so I was listening to it and thinking it was this great thing. And then what we end up seeing happen is a thing called greenwashing, where huge amounts of money. Let's say you got a portfolio, you're a portfolio manager in any private equity firm, in any investment bank, in any firm that's involved with ESG. And all of a sudden you're taking hits and it's doing bad. Well, greenwashing is a great way to take the money that's failing, put it in ESG and say, well, it's supposed to do that. We're doing great. Give us more money. I mean, is there a great social line instead of the bottom line as they talk about? Is there a benefit in that?
There might be a benefit. It might be the benefit to those that are raking in the dollars at the top level, but essentially they're lying to the public. They're lying to their stakeholders and their stockholders in order to continue raking in investments from other areas. And again, this is all going to trickle back down to the American citizen because this stuff doesn't happen on its own.
And Joe, you said it right there. This is basically self-reported. So companies, funds, they self-report what their ESG ratings are, what they believe their environmental, social, and governance impact is. And then there's a couple of rating industries out there that might give you a score, Global Reporting Initiative, Principles of Responsible Investing, Sustainable Accounting Standards Board. All those are the different types of different board names that rate companies based on their ESG. So part of this greenwashing is companies giving themselves better environmental, social, and governance type scores, or saying they're better than they actually are to greenwash their company. And then there's some companies that help them do this. And that's one of my big fears too, is that we see companies out there that help these companies get better ESG scores, and they're out there kind of fooling their investors. So what I've done personally in Warren County has passed a resolution. We're the first government entity in the state to do so, saying that we're not going to use ESG ratings to determine our financial investments because we know that they're a paper bag, easily punched through when you actually look at the deepness of the investing. And other government agencies in Warren County have followed suit, and I'm hoping other counties and other government agencies around the state also do that.
I kind of like it in a way. It makes me laugh. My entire career, 20 years in the military, I never got to rate myself. And in the business world, we can rate ourselves, especially if we're in the ESG world. So, I mean, how does that work? And I mean, the end justifies the means is a Machiavellian term that I've seen very consistent with Democrats and liberal Republicans, that, we're going to do such great things for the community. It'll justify the means in doing this. Now, I mean, with integrity, though, I mean, as Republicans, we're supposed to be the party of integrity. I know the Dems would laugh, ha, 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 but no, that's what we stand for. We're the party of Lincoln. The Dems are the party of bread and circuses, boutique little causes, and financial policy that we know just never ends up working in. They flirt with communism. With integrity, how can one interoperate with a group that is for these ESG type investments and portfolios? So you're in the legislature and I'm, let's say, a big deal in a New Jersey business world, or I'm a New Jersey industry leader and I got a huge slice of ESG going on, and I present to you my lobbyists present to you a bill. How do you deal with that? I mean, that's a challenge, isn't it?
I mean, quite honestly, if they came to you, and Jason, you could probably step in here too. If someone came to me and their first thing that they brought to me was their ESG score, I would tell them, what does this mean to me? Tell me your financial structure. Tell me, are you solvent? Can you perform like I need you to perform? I don't care about this other stuff. And Joe, kind of goes back to what you were saying. When you're getting taught this in school, they're packaging this as some sort of new puppy-eyed, beautiful little dog present for everyone. Like, oh, this is nice. This is sweet. This isn't bad. We're never going to do anything wrong with this stuff. We're never going to convince you to buy this or do that. We're never going to shut down your business because your score isn't high enough, or you can't pay to get your score high enough, right? Because that's going to be the next thing, right? oh, you guys are doing great things for the environment, but you are not donating enough to Act Blue or something like that. So your score is not high enough, and therefore your business gets shut down. And they're going to strong arm people into this environment. So when a business would come to me, ESG factor or rating score would have no impact on me whatsoever. In fact, I'd probably be against them just because of that.
Yeah, Josh is 100% right. This isn't capitalism, Joe. This is a socialism. It's going to go to ESGism. And you talk about integrity. What integrity are we talking about? We're not talking the same values that maybe I follow, because we know that companies consider themselves socially equitable if they provide abortion care and provide and don't have a anti-Second Amendment stance within their investing. That for me is not my social philosophy. It's not the way I look at things. And so what social governance are we talking about when we're talking about investing in these companies? If I see Second Amendment companies that sell and produce firearms and ammunition for our Second Amendment folks as good investments, strong investments, something that invests in our social fabric of this country. But according to the ESG standards, they're not. So we're not talking about everyone's same belief on the way social norms are. Look at companies like Nike and Budweiser now, and who they have invested as their spokesperson. Not my spokesperson, not the person I want speaking for me, but that's the kind of thing that follows with ESG ratings. So there is a lack of integrity. It's not about the bottom line. So if somebody came to me and talked about their ESG rating, I agree with Josh. I'd ask about the bottom line, not their ESG.
Yeah. And I mean, something like that's going to hit even closer to home, because the companies that the state uses to build their curriculum, I mean, do they have an ESG rating? And if their ESG rating isn't high enough or leftist enough, are they not going to be used? Which is going to, again, find its way into each and every single school throughout the state and throughout this country. And it's going to, re-engineer the minds of young American children. And what you're going to have is this conglomerate of children who think, speak, dress, act the same, and are terrified to act out of line, because if I act out of line when I'm 15, is this going to impact my ability to buy a house when I'm 30? It is a very scary time that we're living in right now. And I feel that we're just on the precipice of something big that's going to destroy capitalism altogether.
So we're looking at a legislature now, which is going to be facing donors and major interests. And these major interests, whether they be unions, whether they be the industries that the unions are depending on for jobs, it's going to be orchestrated by an effort to say, look, you want government contracts, you want to fix the roads, you want to do contracts on our schools, you want to build anything to do with, you want the government to help you in any way whatsoever. You want a permit, you want a tax deduction from the state, whatever. If you don't have an ESG rating, then you're kaput. And then I'll play the part of the mainstream New Jersey GOP or some Dem in the legislature, and I'll say, yeah, you guys are just unsophisticated. You don't understand the nuance of how this works. So the nuance was supposed to be, in business school, was a company that's making a huge, huge return on investment would take a slice of it. And then they go back to their investors and say, guys, where do you think this money should go? But as you mentioned with the banks, is now the ESG portfolio is now a big center of the pie. So you're investing in this ESG portfolio. So now if this indeed becomes the economic engine of New Jersey, and now it's thrown at the legislature, now you got to work with these companies. If you don't work with these companies, no money's going to come your way. There's got to be a method of attacking back. There's got to be a method of like reversing it on them. And it's got to be presented to the people. And that's what you're prepared to do. You're prepared to present it to the people and present it to the state and present it to the media as what they're doing here is not what it seems to be. And any thoughts on the ability to counterattack on this?
Well, I think exactly what Jason is doing or has done in Warren County is exactly what you need to do at a statewide level. You need more counties to step up and be doing this. Even municipalities, if they have the power to do so, they should be writing the same type of resolution in taking the same type of stance, and so should the legislature in New Jersey. But we will. That's a bigger bite of the apple, to be honest.
Joe, I think if we let the public know what the stakes are, I think they're going to get involved and we're going to see that tide start to turn. ESG investing accounts for nearly a third to a half of all investing from what I've, kind of my research has seen.
Yeah, that's right.
Which means that this is involved in our pensions, our 401ks, and all our other kind of, retirement type, investing is involved in ESG. We have to let the public know that this is not a bottom line investing. And what we're going to see is more failures like Silicon Valley Bank. And then they're going to push back on using ESG as a score or using ESG as a financial tool to rate their investments and where their pensions are and where their 401ks go. And that's how you push back. That's how you start to turn the tide. So like Josh said, the things we're doing in Warren County, kind of making people aware of it, saying that that's not our bottom line. And listen, I'm not saying that companies cannot have a DEI, program, that they can't be involved in making sure that they're environmentally sound. That's all right and good, but it must be in tune with their bottom line and what their overarching goals of their financial performance is to get a return on investment for their stakeholders. And that's what makes a company profitable. That's what capitalism is.
Otherwise, it's
what
not
makes us want to invest.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. And that's what we have to get back to, making companies, fight for their dollars and make it more capitalist-based society. Make us invest in companies we know provide a good product at a good price. And that doesn't necessarily match with what we see going on. But this is, as we said, that's how we're going to start doing that.
And this is where I'd love to see the unions come on board in this, because you mentioned pensions, union pensions. Their pensions, I'll do a great quote here of my friends over in Local 825. We give our votes to Republicans, but we give our money to Democrats. Well, what good is that if they're like what was it that Marx said? We'll sell the capitalists the noose that they hang themselves with. So you're going to get a Democrat elected who's going to give you the jobs in the near term. He's going to screw your pension in the long term by turning in the same corporate investments that you're relying on for your pensions into these boondoggles. I see potential for you guys to bring the unions over to the Republican side with this.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. The working man, the blue collar man, gets up every day, puts a little bit, 5-10% of their salary into their pensions, 401k, hopes that it's there when they turn 60, 65 years old. Absolutely, they're going to be on board with this. It's the big companies that see this as a way to, and I don't want to, accuse anyone of anything, but to filter a non-viable product through a financial system, and kind of fake the general public into believing they're better than they are because they're using a fake rating. It's like what was that Tommy Boy? I could shove a piece of garbage into a box and call it, and say it's guaranteed, but it doesn't mean it's good. It's still a piece of garbage. Well, that's what this ESG is. You're shoving it into a box, putting a guarantee on it, but it's still a piece of garbage in there. And we need to clean that up and make it a good product. And then people just invest in it anyway.
Because one thing I'm noticing in the business world is these portfolio managers, they rotate. So, these people, they're interchangeable. These boards of directors, by the time you start investing when you're 25, 26 years old, and by the time you think you're going to retire when you're in your 50s or early 60s, the people in the future may not care about you today. So how these funds are being managed is essential to our work, or to everybody in New Jersey, especially union members and their pensions. And ESG now, if that's going to make up the biggest, we need to look at it as a population. And we need to look at in deep and a more what ways do you believe we can message ESG to the public more to make them wake up and demand greater quality standards on what companies we give contracts to in the state, what firms are managing what investments for what pension funds? I don't want to see in 20, 25 years the pension system collapses because of all the boondoggles that's happening today.
Joe, let's get back to real investing in these sound companies. Let's get back to investing in our farmers again.
Yes.
You don't get a better environmental return than that, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we're doing a lot of that in Warren County. So that's where you get involved in getting, environmentally investing soundly. Social, get back to giving people back their tax breaks for their charitable donations, so that we can invest into the social programs we want to invest in, rather than being told by the government what's the right social programs to invest in. And get governance, bottom line investing. That's all it is. It's not the woke agenda, but what companies actually do to make a sound return on investment for their customers. So
empowerment.
Yeah, empowerment, exactly. So that's some of my thoughts on environmental, social, and governance, and how you change that.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is every business should be its own sovereign little nation in itself, right? They should be determining which programs they want to invest in, which services they want to provide to, which charities they want to give back to. But what we're really seeing is this gigantic convergence of all the big boys and big girl companies out there, and they're all speaking and saying the same thing over and over. They're walking in lockstep, and the government seems to be supporting this, at least from the Democrat side. There are some Republicans that are also supporting this as well. I mean, some that even work in this environment, which is disgusting in my opinion. But that's for another day, another topic. But we're losing the different flavors of companies nowadays. There was a time at one point where Pepsi and Coca-Cola were different companies, and now they're basically the same thing, speaking and saying the same thing. The commercials are run by the same marketing companies, and it's just it's not going to be a good situation for the American public going forward, and it's certainly not going to be a good situation for any of those new up and coming entrepreneurs that want to do something different. I mean, we're going to get to a situation where, hey, I want to start a new business. Okay, so what's your ESG plan? I just want to create something new that's not out there before. Well, what's your ESG plan? How much are you going to prepare to invest in that? I'm not prepared to invest in it at all. I don't even know if my product is going to work.
Excluded.
You might even not get a loan at that point.
Yeah.
So we might be squashing the next new Elon Musks of the world, the next new inventors, great, JP Morgans of the world. We might be squashing that whole drive. And that, honestly, you get the sense that that's sort of what the government kind of wants. They don't want anyone to be the next new
lack of competition in the market, rather than competition that drives capitalism. And Josh pointed out exactly, New Jersey is already the worst state in the country to do business in, or if not the worst, one of the worst to do businesses. We see our business flocking out of the state. The small business owner cannot afford to be here because of things like ESG. But who does survive things like ESG? Well, the little bigger companies that can take a smaller hit to their bottom line by this woke investing, and then push the smaller guy out. Meanwhile, the smaller guy who has to invest in these type of platforms can't sustain that investing. And you see things like that when it comes to COVID. Here's Murphy shutting down all our small businesses, right? Because it's socially the right thing to do to flatten the curve, or whatever Murphy wanted to do. And hundreds of businesses go out of business. Small business owners go out of business because they cannot sustain that. Big companies didn't take that hit, and they weathered the storm. And then they just got the kickback from the federal government when the stimulus plan came in. I lost millions of dollars. Oh, here you go. We'll give it back to you. Well, that was born on the back of the middle class and the small business owners who all lost their jobs and all the shops closed. That's the same thing we're seeing here.
Well, it's the points you're coming on are definitely points that are about building up the middle class and protecting the investor and protecting people's pensions and protecting people's futures against a very irresponsible and reckless program that is born of obviously malignant means that may have had some, altruism to it, but mostly malignant, and is obviously a ruse for corruption. And thank you, gentlemen, for fighting it. We're pushing 30 minutes. Anything else you guys want to add?
Thank you for your time, Joe. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, Joe, you're doing a great job with Climb to Glory, and really making people aware of the issues out there. I don't think people are aware yet enough about this ESG thing. So you doing this means a lot, and we need great people like Josh Aikens and Jason Sarnoski in the assembly to fight and to know what's going on so that we're not getting involved in this kind of garbage. So
And thank you,
thanks
because
for that
by
opportunity.
making the stand against ESG, you're taking on some pretty rough and nasty people. So it does
Yeah.
take some guts, and I salute you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You'll have a great evening and climb to glory.
Sounds great. Bye.